I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for that which is right. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for justice. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for that which is true. Never forget that everything Hitler did in Germany was legal. There can be no deep disappointment where there is no deep love. We must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, political, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. The first question that the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed the question, if I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? The quality, not the longevity, of one's life, is what is important. One of the greatest casualties of the war in Vietnam is the Great Society, shot down on the battlefield of Vietnam. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. I am not interested in power for power's sake, but I'm interested in power that is moral, that is right and that is good. Peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself. It is not enough to say we must not wage war. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it. Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability but comes through continuous struggle. And so we must straighten our backs and work for our freedom. A man can't ride you unless your back is bent. Nonviolence means avoiding not only external physical violence but also internal violence of spirit. You not only refuse to shoot a man, but you refuse to hate him. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. When you are right you cannot be too radical, when you are wrong, you cannot be too conservative. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon, which cuts without wounding and ennobles the man who wields it. It is a sword that heals. If we are to go forward, we must go back and rediscover those precious values, that all reality hinges on moral foundations and that all reality has spiritual control. Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and when they fail in this purpose they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. We must concentrate not merely on the negative expulsion of war but the positive affirmation of peace. I submit that an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law. Whatever affects one directly, affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. If a man has not discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live. I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The time is always right to do what is right. He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. Whatever your life's work is, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn could do it no better. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor, it must be demanded by the oppressed. Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom. Everything that we see is a shadow cast by that which we do not see. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people but the silence over that by the good people. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. We must accept finite disappointment but never lose infinite hope. Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? A genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus but a molder of consensus. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. We may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. That old law about an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. The time is always right to do the right thing. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. Capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's the way the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, we are going to have to change the system.